There's a moment that happens to nearly every traveler the first time they step out of the Monastiraki metro station in Athens. It's the feeling of time collapsing. 1 second you're surrounded by modern shops, market stalls, and lively street musicians, and the next you look up and there it is, the Acropolis, rising above the city in all its ancient majesty. No matter how many photos you've seen, it still takes your breath away. But in the back of your mind, another thought may linger. With everything going on in the world, is it still safe to travel to Athens? Stick with me until the end of this video, because I'll share a surprising insight that might just change the way you think about navigating the Greek capital, and how to prepare for an unforgettable experience with fewer risks and more rewards. Let's begin by saying this. Athens is a city of layers. Not just historical layers, though it has plenty of those, but social, economic, and cultural ones too. It's vibrant, it's chaotic, it's deeply proud, and it's constantly evolving. And like many major cities, it has its quirks. Some of those quirks can be mildly frustrating. Some can affect your travel plans, but very few, if any, rise to the level of serious danger. One issue that consistently comes up in conversations about safety in Athens is the taxi experience. And I want to be upfront here. This is one area where travelers need to stay especially aware. Taxi scams in Athens aren't necessarily violent or dramatic, but they can be persistent and frustrating. They often involve overcharging, taking longer routes than necessary, or quoting flat fees for rides that should be metered. It's not uncommon for an unsuspecting visitor arriving at the airport or ferry terminal to be told it's 70 euros to the city, when in reality, the official daytime flat rate is much lower. And once you've agreed and are in the car, your options are limited. The problem isn't that taxis are unsafe to ride, it's that the system can be inconsistent and at times opportunistic. Some drivers see tourists as easy targets for inflated fares. Others are perfectly honest and professional. But it's hard to tell who's who in the moment, especially if you're tired, jet-lagged, or unfamiliar with local prices. To reduce the risk of being overcharged, many experienced travelers now turn to ride-hailing apps like Beat, which is widely used in Athens and lets you pay by card, see fare estimates, and avoid language barriers. But even with apps, be aware. Surge pricing can apply, and strikes or protests can limit availability. And that brings us to another point: transportation strikes. Unlike taxi scams, which can be dodged with awareness, strikes are a reality of Greek life that can truly disrupt your plans. Athens, like many European capitals, has a long tradition of labor action. Transport workers, including metro operators, bus drivers, and ferry crews, sometimes stage one-day or multi-day strikes to protest wages, working conditions, or broader government policies. What's important to understand is that these strikes aren't random or chaotic. They're usually planned in advance, announced publicly, and often tied to larger political or economic debates. But while the reasons for the strikes are understandable, the impacts on travelers can be significant. Imagine waking up to find that the entire metro system is shut down for the day, with no buses running either. That can throw off an entire itinerary, especially if you were planning to visit archaeological sites, make a cruise or ferry connection, or catch a flight. And during the summer months, when temperatures soar and the streets are packed with tourists, having to suddenly rely on walking long distances or scrambling for a cab can turn a dream day into a logistical nightmare. That said, strikes aren't inherently unsafe. They're just disruptive. They rarely involve violence or confrontation, and protesters are typically focused on the government or unions, not the public. Still, it's best to avoid protest areas when they do occur, especially in Syntagma Square, which is often the epicenter of public demonstrations. Not because you're likely to be targeted, but because large crowds and heightened emotions can sometimes lead to unpredictable outcomes. So with all of this in mind, what are the governments of the world saying about travel to Athens right now? The United States Department of State currently places Greece at a Level 1 advisory, which is the lowest possible level and simply means exercise normal precautions. That tells you something right away. Despite economic fluctuations, demonstrations, or local scams, Greece, and Athens specifically, is not seen as a high-risk destination by U.S. authorities. They do mention petty crime like pickpocketing, particularly in crowded areas and on public transport, but nothing beyond the usual warnings you'd see for major tourist cities. Global Affairs Canada advises Canadians to take normal safety precautions in Greece. Their primary concerns echo the US: small-scale theft, strikes that can affect transportation services, and the possibility of localized protests. Again, there is no suggestion that travelers are in danger, only that they should remain aware of their surroundings, avoid demonstration areas, and double-check transport schedules during their stay. The UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office notes that strikes and demonstrations can occasionally disrupt travel plans, particularly if you're relying on ferries or the Athens metro system. However, they make no mention of targeted violence against tourists or any widespread safety issues. The UK also highlights the need for sun protection and hydration in the summer months, a reminder that sometimes the most immediate risks in Athens are more about weather than crime. Meanwhile, the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade encourages Australians to exercise normal safety awareness in Greece. Their guidance mirrors the others, highlighting the potential for transport strikes and petty theft. They also suggest checking local news for updates on scheduled protests or strike actions that could affect your mobility. Now, let's step out of the realm of policy and advisories and return to what it's actually like to walk the streets of Athens. From the bustling central market on Athens Street to the cafes of Koukaki, from the ancient ruins scattered across the city to the leafy paths of the National Garden, Athens is remarkably alive. It's gritty in places, yes. It's not always polished, but that's part of what makes it real. You'll find locals who are happy to help, especially if you make even a modest effort to speak a few Greek words. You'll find neighborhoods, like Pangradi or Petrolona, that feel like small villages tucked within a capital. And you'll notice that, despite economic strain and political tension, Athenians are proud, warm, and resilient. Now, while the streets themselves are relatively safe, some areas can feel less welcoming late at night. Omonia Square, for example, has long had a reputation for being a little rougher after dark. Not necessarily dangerous, but not where you'd want to wander alone with a camera dangling from your neck. Common sense goes a long way. If a place feels sketchy, trust your gut. Athens rewards curiosity, but not recklessness. You should also know that the city is walkable, but sprawling. And in the summer, the heat can be intense. Long walks under the midday sun, especially when public transport is limited, can become a challenge. Carry water, wear good shoes, and pace yourself. You're not just walking through a city, you're walking through millennia of civilization. Which brings me to this. Athens is one of the few cities in the world where you can accidentally stumble across a 2,000-year-old ruin while looking for a souvlaki shop. Its streets are layered with history and meaning. But if you're so caught up worrying about scams or schedules, you might miss the very things that make it unforgettable. So here's my take, after years of traveling through Athens in different seasons and situations. Yes, Athens is safe to visit in 2025. It has its frustrations, it has its flaws, but it also has unmatched character. And the things that could derail your trip, an overpriced taxi, a sudden transit strike, a pickpocket on the tram, are all manageable if you're informed and prepared. And now, as promised, here's the surprising fact that many travelers don't know. Despite its economic ups and downs over the past decade, Athens now ranks as one of the fastest-growing cultural tourism destinations in Europe. It has quietly built an incredible network of new museums, revitalized public spaces, and community-led art initiatives that are transforming how visitors experience the city. Places like the Stavros Niarchos Foundation Cultural Center and the reimagined National Gallery are drawing global praise, yet many travelers still focus only on the ancient sites. So don't just go to Athens for the history, go for the now, the modern Athens, the one that sings through the streets at night, serves you ouzo with a wink, and invites you to see not just what has stood the test of time, but what's still being built. I'm Stephen from the Travel Safety Network. If you found this video helpful, please like, share, and subscribe. Drop a comment below if you've been to Athens, or if you have questions about your upcoming trip. I'm here to help you travel smarter, safer, and with greater confidence. Until next time, stay alert, stay curious, and never stop exploring.